Hello, everyone. All right, going to be showing the 11 pack ZG 50 to 55 mob pool. This is just mainly for guild members to refer to. Um, so to start, if you have any boosties, you're going to want to pull these mobs. But if you're by yourself, just doing it for bijous, gold, rep, whatever, you can just jump past. But again, if you have a booster, you're going to want to pull those first two so they can run to the island right there. And then here, you're going to keep running through. I'm a dipshit and pulled those, but um, you're just going to want to keep trugging on through. It's important. Not supposed to pull those guys, but not a big deal. It's important that you run here pretty much as soon as you enter the freshly reset instance. The big thing is you just don't want the pats to get too out of position. Obviously, some pats won't render when you're at the entrance, but some will, mainly berserkers. If the berserker's in the wrong spot as you're going through this pool, it can not kill the pool, but it really fucks things up. It makes things a lot more difficult than they have to be. So just really important to try to be as quick as you can once you do enter. So from here, you're going to reset on that route. Generally, you're not going to have any issues. One issue you can run into is the snake pat. Again, if your timing is off, could be right there and pull. They can shoot poison through the root. The LOS doesn't matter to them, or there's no LOS for them right there. So you'll want to like jump off and have them run around and jump back on, but you just kind of have to handle that as needed. So once you do get reset out of combat on that route, you're going to come around here. You want to render this double troll pat. It's going to be a mix of axe thrower, priest, axe thrower, whatever. I like to mark them. This will come up. This will be important later. We might not see it, but it's good to just kind of have that extra little marker on them so you know where they're at as you kind of get towards the end of the pool. And then from here, as you're running back to the route, again, make sure you keep them rendered. It's really easy to kind of run past if they're still around that corner too far for them to not stay rendered, and then you just end up in a really tricky spot. So then you're going to want to wait, obviously, for this berserker right here to go and get past far enough to the right for you to begin your pull. He's a little farther ahead than I typically start, but he doubles back pretty much at the end, like right after this hut. He turns back around, so you have a pretty decent amount of time once he kind of gets around the corner there. So once you get your slow fall from your Noggenfogger, you want to get shielded up as soon as possible, drink, and then start the pull. You're going to want to jump down to that corner, pull these 2 packs, come around here, try not to get hit if you can help it. Again, be careful of mobs up top. There's that little snake pat. You shouldn't have any issues if you just, take a normal route up here, but just something to be mindful of. When you're coming into the tigers, try to take a wider route like I am, just to try to minimize as many hits as you're taking. Again, it helps to not take damage off on your mana shield to keep as much mana as you can going through the rest of the pool. And it's very easy for them to kind of get some double, triple hits on you, and suddenly you're dazed in the middle of all the crocs and tigers. So just really important to try to get through there as quickly and easy as possible. Then you come up here. I usually wait a couple seconds, let the mobs get a little closer. Be mindful of the hook tooth here. Pull that croc, and then come around. I get dazed there a lot. If you get dazed, you kind of just got to keep going through the rest of the pool as you would normally. Doesn't really change up the pathing. Obviously, the mobs are going to be a little bit closer. You might have to use blink another couple times, but the pathing overall doesn't change if you get dazed there. But it's going to happen eventually. Just really depends on how the mobs timing and their pull works out. But yeah. So you're going to want to come around here. My slow fall fell off, so something to keep in mind. You can carry slow fall to this part and make it a little bit easier just to stay mounted coming up this hill. Not a huge deal. kind of nice to show you how this works with that amount. So you're going to come up the hill. Normally, if you're mounted, you want to maybe wait a little bit once you're up here because you're going to be a little bit further ahead of the mobs. Obviously, I'm not mounted, so we can kind of just go ahead. Gonna want to jump off. We're aiming for that spot on the route right there. So once you land, I usually swim forward a couple strokes. Then I blink just to try to avoid any potential bugginess with the blink. Jump up on the route, strafe over to the side, and jump off. That for me is the quickest way to get up and off of the route. I think gnomes have a little bit of an easier time getting up the route. So, depending on your race and the gender, you might have an easier or harder time. So just kind of adjust as necessary, but understand that it's not a one size fits all kind of deal. So just something to keep in mind. You're gonna want to wand that pack. This is why we marked those mobs, because we kind of knew ahead of time before we came up the hill where they were at. And that's also why we render them, because if they were right here, we couldn't do this. Blizzard these guys, just kind of give myself a second, get them a little more grouped up because they can get a little all over the place coming up that hill. Wait a second, I slow fall beforehand, jump off. Make sure they get past like the first half of the bridge, or they might double back to the other side of the bridge that you don't want them on, and then you're in a really tricky spot. So just something to keep in mind. Blink through those mobs. This spot's really tricky, especially if you're still a slow fall, so just try to jump early. It's very easy to get hit around the corner by everything, so again, just make sure you're being mindful of where the mobs are compared to you, and just making the necessary preparations and measures. Do rank 1 mage armor coming up here. Save mana. You don't need the extra resistance, and all you really want is that mana regen, so the rank of it doesn't matter. Come up here. Sometimes they might do that. If you jump on the rope, they might immediately not turn around. They'll have a bit of a weird issue. If that happens, you just have to kind of strafe backwards. Not really sure what causes it. No way that I've really seen that fixes it before that. But if that does happen, you just kind of have to do a little quick strafe backwards as necessary, and they should flip around without issue. But just something to keep in mind again. And then from here, just doing the kill phase. The only really tricky part from here is if I can target them, is the cubs. I think they're already dead. With the tigers, there are about, I want to say, 4 to 5 cubs, maybe like 3 to 5 cubs, depending on the pool and what you do end up getting. But there's like 3 to 5 cubs that you're going to pull. They're non-elites, so they're going to die a lot quicker than the rest of your pool. And when they get low on health, they flee. And usually they're caught in your blizzard, and you can kind of just kill them in a max rank really quickly, really easily. Sometimes they might be like on the front end when they start their flee, and they'll flee behind you up here, and they'll pull these mobs. If they get to those mobs, you're dead, or you have to reset. There's no fixing that. There's no recovering that, or killing or keeping those mobs with your pool is normal. You pull those mobs, it's pool's over. You have to reset or you die. So it's kind of just, if they run this way, throw the kitchen sink at them. Nova, if there's just one, I usually fire blast max rank and then follow up with like a wand or an arcane explosion. You want them dead as quickly as possible. It's kind of a nuisance in that you'll have to waste a little bit more mana than you would typically like, but it's better to waste mana than to waste an entire pool. Because again, once you die, it's with the padding, it's really hard to recover, and sometimes you might just end up ultimately having to reset from there, because the patrols get so out of position, and it just becomes a bit of a pain in the ass. So yeah, from here, just a simple kill phase, nothing too crazy, just finishing up. Yeah, so you can see we're at 9 minutes 50 seconds, 52 mobs. Like I said, there's going to be some random RNG-ness to your pulls, so that's why there's that 50 to 55 range that you're gonna typically have. But as long as you don't have any major issues with like an entire pack randomly dropping off, you should always be at least 50. So 50 55 is where you'll typically be at. And yeah, so that is the ZG pull. Obviously, some iterations of the pull based on whether or not you get dazed, if there's a pat, depending on the timing of things. But generally, that's just the baseline of the pull. So, thank you.